from the land of sky blue waters. Welcome to the Sota Pod. Isha Dromi here, and I will be joined by Seth Toupal momentarily. And I thank you all for joining us wherever and whenever you are listening. Sorry that the podcast is dropping late, ladies and gentlemen. In my day job, I have this new client, and there's a lot to do getting them ready to start their new podcast. Yeah, I do podcast editing and some consulting and stuff on the side. And though I was like locked and loaded, notes in hand, ready to go to record the intro and the filler parts of this episode here yesterday, there was just a lot to do. Meetings changed. The time of meeting changed anyways. And I just wasn't able to do it before my fight show that I do every Monday, the Rush City Fight Show. Humble plug on the City Life Project YouTube channel. But anyways, we are here now. Thank you guys for your patience. And we have a great show here today. Yes, in the dog days of summer, Seth and I were able to bank over an hour of hockey talk. So excited to get to that. We talk about some news in the National Hockey League. Yes, there is some news in the National Hockey League. And I get Seth's opinion and his breakdown on some of the prospect rankings that Sound the Foghorn in collaboration with the Sota Pod released last week. Now, we've banked the entire Minnesota Wild prospect rankings from 33 all the way to number 1. We are releasing it in chunks. So I believe 33 to 20 or 33 to 25. I can't even keep track anymore. The first chunk of it was released on the Judd'z Budz feed and Judd'z Budz on this Sota Pod podcast feed that you're listening to. If you're listening to the podcast here, if you're watching, Hoppy did post the episode, the first part of the episode as well on YouTube, and we'll be rolling out various individual player profiles and rankings as well. So there's so much Minnesota Wild content coming for you guys on both the Sota Pod podcast, Judd'z Budz, and on the Sota Pod YouTube channel. And as always, every week, Hoppy and Joe Smith on Fellowship of the Rink will continue to provide you guys some amazing guests and even further and insider and professional breakdown of what's going on in regards to your Minnesota Wild. So before we bring on Seth, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Northland Vodka. Guys, we don't need to cope with no more hockey for much longer. And for real hockey fans, because I've been seeing a bunch of people on Twitter being like, oh, I didn't even know the U18 was on. Bitch, it's on the same time every year. If you don't know when the U18s is on, if you ain't watching the Hlinka Gretzky, are you really a hockey fan? I'm going to say that you aren't. So anyways, I'm teasing. I know there's some people who don't give a fuck about the U18s. They only care about their Minnesota Wild. Whatever. Regardless, you don't have to cope with no more NHL hockey for much longer. But if you still need something to get you through the summer, if you still need an amazing vodka for mixed drinks, or just to drink straight because it is that good, you need Northland Vodka, ladies and gentlemen. That is right. Northland Vodka is an outstanding local company. Mark Parrish and the crew there are such great people, amazing to work with. And they're continuing to host signings and meet and greets throughout the rest of the summer at various liquor stores and events. So be sure to follow them on social media at Northland Vodka to find out where they will be next. And check them out. They're pretty much on the shelves of every single liquor store. And if they're not at your local liquor store, ask them why. Ask them why they don't have the best vodka in the state. Hell, the best vodka in the country on their shelves. Guys, I'm mostly a beer and whiskey drinker, but I drink this vodka straight or on the rocks. It's so good. Now, not to say that it's not your perfect vodka for a mixer as well. It's the perfect vodka for everything. And you know what? A small percentage of every sale goes back into the community, goes back into local hockey. So what are you waiting for? Go pick you up some Northland today. Northland Vodka, a proud partner of the Sota Pod. All right, let's bring on Seth Toupal. Let's talk some puck. Let's get into some hockey. This episode of the Sota Pod is brought to you by BetterHelp. And look, ladies and gentlemen, everyone goes through ups and downs. Everyone goes through rough patches in life. And it's important to identify and stay true to your self-care routine. Whether that's leg day at the gym or therapy day. Is your schedule packed with summer activities for the kids, work that's keeping you inside versus enjoying the good weather? Or are all the boxes checked and you're confused as to why you're feeling down? Sometimes we can have everything in the world that makes us happy and we still don't feel right. Sometimes we need to talk about it with somebody and a shoulder to lean on. Therapy should be in those non-negotiable self-care routines if that's the case. And if you haven't talked to anybody before, if you haven't talked to a therapist and you're thinking about it now, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient and suitable to your schedule. So right off the bat, there's a stress lifted off your shoulder. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge if you feel like that person is not a fit for you. Just like those who use the gym for self-care, much like myself, never skip your run day, never skip your leg day, never skip your therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. Again, to get 10% off your first month here today. We're looking out for you guys. BetterHelp.com/THPN. Take advantage of our deal and start feeling better today with BetterHelp. And we are back for some more hockey talk here with my friend and yours, Seth Toupal from Locked On Wild. How's it going, man?
Going good. Where does the time go? We're already now basically middle of August. Another month, and it'll be training camp. And
that's
wild
crazy.
Season is finally upon us.
So it's just over, I believe by the time this drops, just over 65 days until the regular season starts, right? So like 40 plus, around 40 until training camp. You know, that's insane, man. That's insane. Where does, and especially for, you know, a Wild team that didn't even sniff the playoffs. Like it's been a much longer off season for Wild fans and those who cover the team like us. Yet it feels like it just went by quick. And maybe it's because the playoffs were just really exciting. Like this year, I would say it was a good year for playoffs. It was a good World Championship. Hell, the U18s just closed out. Like I feel like there was a lot of hockey still going on, like it happens every year. But for some reason, it pulled me in a little bit more than in years past. I can't really explain it. I can't explain why it went by fast, despite the team that we cover and a lot of your guys' favorite team in the Minnesota Wild were out so early. I don't know. Do you have a pulse on it? For me, it's weird. I felt like I've still been like in kind of hockey mode, despite it, you know, being fucking August and, you know, we're like grasping at straws to talk about Wild related stuff.
I think up until the last probably week, the offseason has gone pretty quickly. But now, like, this is going to be the struggle through pretty much the entire month of August. This is when a lot of the front office executives are maybe taking some time off before the season gets going. Stuff gets pretty quiet around this time of year. I will point out, though, 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago or three already, Bill Guerin did trade Dmitry Kulikov in August, right before training camp started. And so it's not commonplace to see stuff happen at this time in the offseason, but it certainly isn't out of the realm of possibility either. But
Stanley Cup champion Dmitry Kulikov.
Yeah. I'm still getting used to, because it's like it's gonna follow Kulikov for the rest of his career, and I'm still getting used to having to attach that to his name. It's like when somebody gets knighted, then you got to call him sir or ma'am. I don't know what the
Yeah, I actually don't know either. To be honest, I was just trying to think as well.
It's Dame, I think.
Dame.
I think Judi Dench is knighted. Don't ask me how I know that, but I think it's Dame.
Okay. I think you're right.
Not to be confused with Damian Lillard, but
Dame. Damian Lillard. By the
So
way, I'm not a basketball guy, but like everyone in Vancouver and Vancouver Island, basically British Columbia, like if they're gonna root for a basketball team, it's either like bandwagon Golden State or Toronto because they're Canada's team. For me, I was always very critical of both those takes, saying the closest team, you know, is Portland. So Portland should have been the team, and Damian Lillard played so many great years for Portland before eventually moving on. Shoot, even my younger sister took a road trip down there one time and saw him put up 55. How are you? Like, come on. So I like my buddy Shane. He listens to this all the time. He's from back home, and he's a huge Toronto Raptors fan. And we would butt heads about this. Portland is the closest team to Vancouver. Thus, they should be the home team, not Toronto, which is miles upon miles upon miles away. Sorry, Shane, kilometers upon kilometers upon kilometers away. It's whack. Like the Timberwolves are closer to Vancouver than fucking Toronto.
Yeah, that is weird that people would be like, well, hey, we got to go with the Raptors. It's like, do you though? You don't necessarily have to. I don't know, man. I feel like even Vancouver's split on Mariners and Blue Jays, as it should be. Like, fuck the Blue Jays. The Mariners are the closer team. Now, the Mariners bring a lot more sadness, but they're still the closer team. They bring a lot more sadness, but they have infinitely cooler merch. Whoever came up with the let's turn the M in Mariners into a trident.
Oh yeah, it's
amazing.
It's sick. Yeah,
100 out of 10.
Bro, and like how can you not like? And for me, like I grew up with the Ichiro Suzuki era. Like how could you not be a fan of watching that absolute beauty just sink homer after homer after homer?
Some of the stories,
and I'm not even a baseball guy.
He did during his career are just insane.
Dude, I actually have a story that's related to Ichiro Suzuki. So I took a trip to just outside of Seattle area with a friend. And we may have been hanging out at this lake in this really nice gated community. I think it was gated anyways, the place I was staying. Anyways, very, very upper class community. And hanging out, and we couldn't find anyone to get us beer, as I think I was like 18 or 19 at the time. And I hate how, at that age anyways, I was already allowed to drink in Canada, but in the States, the stupid 21 fucking law. So we couldn't get any beer easily, but we were able to find some hippie lettuce pretty easily. And so, passed around a joint there at the lake, and we're just walking around this neighborhood. There was a lot of cool little trails and paths. And then the next thing we know, we're like in this crazy ass, like, we're in someone's backyard. Like, I don't know if we walked through the shrubs. Again, it was a little hazy. We're in this crazy ass backyard. There's freaking tree houses that are connected to other tree houses with like these crazy bridges and all that shit. And get back to the place that we're staying. Turns out it was Ichiro Suzuki's backyard.
Oh my God.
Stumbled into his backyard, baked out of our minds. Yeah.
It sounded like for a minute that you ended up on Andor for the Star Wars fans.
Oh, dude, that's what it reminded me of. No joke. That's a good like comparison. Yeah. Except there was like siding and shit on all these like friggin' tree houses. Like they were straight up
more
tree
actual,
houses.
Actual houses as opposed to like tree huts.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know how and where we got. It's the dog days of summer, ladies and gentlemen. We do have some hockey stuff to talk about, guys. We do have some hockey stuff to talk about. And let's just start with the wild stuff here. So we the Sota Pod and the podcast formerly known as Sound the Foghorn, they have since retired the podcast, but we brought the boys from Sound the Foghorn on the show last week, and we are releasing those on the Judd'z Budz podcast feed and on the Sota Pod podcast feed for the next few weeks. We did a big old recording, and there are clips of that episode as well, single profile of players, as well as chunks of our all-encompassing Minnesota Wild prospect rankings. It's a show that we did in collaboration with Sound the Foghorn 3 years running now. And we do one in the summer, and then we do one mid-season as well. And we see who rises in our rankings, who falls in our rankings. And I wanted to not go over all of them with Seth here, but we will continue to go over them a little bit in chunks here in the coming weeks on the Sota Pod, since there's nothing to talk about here in regards to wild news. So barring any wild news, we will go over some of these rankings together. And look, I encourage you guys to go listen to the podcast, the episodes that are dropping on Judd'z, Budz, and or the YouTube channel. We're not going to like do the whole rundown here, but what I did want to do was get Seth's opinion and get Seth to chime in, much like we got Zeke, much like we got Brett and Baki to chime in as well. So since one of the chunks of the episodes is out, we're not going to spoil or talk about the ones, like the top ones right now. Let's start at the bottom. That episode's out already. A lot of you who are listening to this episode have probably already heard it. So let's start with 33 to 25, Seth, in regards to the Minnesota Wild prospect rankings. Now, Seth has our rankings here. You guys know our rankings as well. We didn't spend a lot of time like really on like what order they were. We kind of talked about why some were higher than others, but Seth had an interesting approach to how he wanted to comment on our consensus ranking from 33 to 25, mixed ranking. Zeke, Spoke Z, Brett, Baki, myself, and Hoppy. So where do you want to start, Seth? Where do you want to start?
First, I want to make sure so that I don't tip too many players. We are including number 25 on your list.
Yeah, let's include 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, because that actually is a funny callback to, I don't remember, it was some movie that I watched, and they had just this huge argument because it was like a political show, and they leaked some info that was not supposed to be out there because the person went up to the number and was like, you're supposed to go up to, but not include that one. So
in this case, we'll include it. In this case, we'll include it because it's because in our consensus rankings here, I think it's worth talking about.
Yes, I definitely agree. And so I'll start with, and I'm going based off of like where they're at in their process, how close they are to being able to contribute. And so my rankings are starting with the guy who is going to be in the mix as potential injury call-up or potential to make the team, depending on how he does in training camp. Graham Clark tops the list for me. You know, I just am really impressed with what he's been able to do in the Devils system over the last couple of years. 200-plus shots on goal the last 2 seasons, 25 goals each year. He is the most NHL ready of any of the players in this bunch, and I think he brings something that can really help this team. Somebody who can just get shots on net. You know, we've talked about it, Isha, quite a bit over the offseason. There is a big need for somebody to just let it rip with the puck in that top 6, like that second line wing spot. And I don't know if Graham Clark ends up being the guy to take that spot. We will find out during training camp, but he is the most NHL ready of this list. And so I start with him. I had him at 19, by the way.
Okay. I had him the highest amongst anyone because the way I looked at these rankings too was less about, you know, down the road ceiling, but more about like you said, who is ready to play or who is already playing pro and has already proven that he's almost at that ceiling, right? Because everyone was ripping on me for my top 5, which we'll get to later. But I got absolutely eviscerated on the podcast.
I can't. I'm gonna look. Okay, I'm just gonna
say I'm gonna tease everybody else fucking recency bias. But anyways,
yeah, I can see why just looking at the rankings. But I'm going with Clark first. I'm gonna go with Levi number 2.
Oh, let's go! I love that. And you know what? There was because the first chunk was already released, like I said, and was posted on YouTube, and a lot of the YouTube comments said the same.
Yeah. He looked fantastic, and in the World Championships, and he's a big body. Like I watched him at development camp, and he moves around really well in the net. The key here is going to be what happens with Jesper, because if Jesper's at the NHL level, he's your starting goalie at Iowa. But if not, then that's going to be interesting, because I think
I think just having him as a good backup is fine too.
For
because
sure.
He's young enough where it's like, yeah, when Jesper becomes a full-time NHL player, which again, we've talked about on this show, we've exhausted it. Like, I don't think it's going to be this year because they have two NHL goalies, top NHL goalie. So, well, at least two starter goalies, a 1A and 1B. But at 23 years old, he's played pro already, like big body. Yeah, man. And you got to see him firsthand and talk to people who were involved in the in that summer camp as well.
And he's confident too. He's got that swagger to him, which you have to have if you're a goalie.
Yeah.
So I'm putting him number 2 in this grouping. After that, it gets kind of interesting. Toporowski is, I would call him a wild card in this. He was brought into the organization in one of the trade deadline moves as somebody who has done some really good things throughout his minor league hockey career. And he did pretty good when he got to Iowa. Is he close to being an NHL guy? I'm really not sure. I think he's a little further down the list than, say, some of these other players in this group. I'll actually put Pavel Novak third.
Okay.
Because I think he's been in the minors long enough that it may not be likely that he does get to the NHL level at this point, but he's been pretty good organizational depth. So I'm going to put him third. I'll put Toporowski fourth. And then Jimmy Clark and Stevie Leskovar, I'd probably leave them where they're at. I think one of the most intriguing players of this grouping is Chase Wutsky, the goalie. Like, he's super young.
He's 17.
But he's a quick study. He's a fast learner, and thus is somebody who has potential to be fast tracked throughout the organization. So I would honestly, from Jimmy Clark to Leskovar to Wutsky to Guskov and Benoit, I would probably just leave that as is based off of how the group had their consensus. But I'm definitely at the top end. I'm definitely going Clark, Levi, Novak, and Toporowski to start it off.
My thing with Leskovar is everyone knows the type of hockey that I like to watch, right?
Yeah.
And with him, I think we were talking about fast tracked. I think he's going to be one who's going to be fast tracked through the pros, not necessarily to be a full-time Minnesota Wild player by any means, but like he's going to be an ECHL darling if they want him to develop there. He fits the exact mold in what you want for an ECHL player. Scouts and even like Wild management have said that like he can skate. He can shoot the puck. He actually has skill, but he chooses to play a certain type of game because he's a big, mean son of a bitch. So if he can kind of balance it out a little bit more, I think he could be, an absolute, not even just fan favorite, but a very, very valuable piece to the Iowa Heartlanders. I think he'd fit in great with the Iowa Wild when he reaches that point, whether it's next year or the year after. And shoot, man, 2-3 years in Iowa, he is a guy that, look, if you need some grit going into a playoff run, if you need some grit to get the boys going, even at the NHL level, or you're playing some tough teams, like going into a Winnipeg, which is going to call up some crazy ass big boys in the next couple of years who are developing in the minors. And they're just one of the teams that have come to mind because we did a deep dive on Winnipeg a couple weeks ago, Seth. And I remember we were highlighting some of the guys who are playing for the Manitoba Moose who are like under 25 and who are absolute monsters and who actually have skill. So like Winnipeg is going to be a mean team again moving forward. Not that they weren't last year, but they're going to be even meaner moving forward. So that was why I mentioned that team. But like when you're playing some of these mean teams and you just need a little bit of that fear factor, which is almost extinct from the NHL, but not quite, right? There still is that game within the game. This is going to be a guy that you've drafted and developed, who has probably no expectation of being a full-time NHL player, but who can be an asset, you know, if all goes well in the rest of his development. So like, I know a lot of people don't see value in that anymore. I still, call me old school, I don't give a shit. I still see value in that. Now, I put him at 15, which is, yes, I get it. It was a little crazy, but like I said, I just value that. I just value that part of the game. And the goalie you mentioned, yeah, it's just I haven't seen enough of him in the WHL yet to give him a higher ranking. But say he played even 30 games this year and put up the same amount of numbers, then like at the high numbers that he put up right now and stats, then I would 100% bumped him up a little bit. I imagine mid-season he's going to rise a little. Both of the goalies are going to rise a little bit more for sure.
Yeah. And on the Leskovar route, that's something that Bill Guerin obviously values.
Yeah.
Like we've seen that over the last few seasons, is that he has really made sure that the Wild have at least one player that's capable of providing some bruise if needed. And so if he can provide that, you know, because that's the other thing too, is the Wild, their MO has been when players get injured to kind of elevate somebody in the lineup and bring somebody in to fill like a fourth line role. And so that I think gives him a better opportunity to, and of course I'm talking about defense, that I think that gives him a better opportunity to quickly come in, because he can just hop into one of those bottom pairing roles quicker than if he was trying to fill somewhere higher in the lineup.
And he's played like he's played playoff games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's someone you can lean on. And there's just that one clip that we showed like post draft where like he like wrecking ball 3 guys. One of them is half dead on the ice, and then he waves over the big boy on the other team and then beats the piss out of him. It's just
he's like you want. Dude. He's like, I am in a giving mood, and so if you want some, come get it.
Yeah. One player we left off this list was Matthew Sop, the Kitchener signing. Obviously an overager last year in the OHL, but did have a late start to the OHL. He played 1 full year of OJHL, Junior A in the Ontario Hockey League before joining Kitchener full time. So he actually, as an overager, he only played 3 years OHL. He didn't play, 4 or 5 years OHL, right? So he was a little bit late to that party, which honestly, from a developmental point of view, you could look at him as like a 19, 20-year-old, not a 20, 21-year-old in that case, because like his frame, like, yeah, he's 6 foot, 182 pounds, but there's a lot of bigger guys like that. He was far from the biggest guy on that Kitchener Rangers team anyways. He's 21, 90 points last year on the second line, 43 goals. And in his second year with the OHL, he had 56 points, 23 goals in 67 games. So we left him off the list, but I think there's like, he's someone that we have to keep our eye on this year. So like with Graham Clark coming in, in Yankee swap for Adam Beckman, Sop as well playing in Iowa, like there's going to be some interesting guys, not just on like, because we had so many young defensemen come in last year. Like, there's going to be some interesting guys up front to keep our eyes on as well. And his frame, like, he's going to fit right into the AHL. And I think he'll probably have a slow start, because I don't think they're going to put him like right in the top 6. But I do think he'll play himself into that role. And like, dude, like Hendricks clearly saw something in him. And the more I read, and the more I was like talking to some people on the junior hockey circuit, like there were a lot of teams who were looking at this guy, and he got a one-way contract, so he's just an AHL one-way contract. So he's not eligible to even be called up. So like, he's going to be focused on just AHL for the next year, and we'll see what happens after that. So I don't know. Like I don't know if I'd put him above anybody else that we have here as far as 33 up, but he definitely should be like an honorable mention, because he's only 21.
Yeah, 100% in the honorable mention category. And, just one of those guys that we'll be keeping an eye on to kind of see how he handles it. And the thing that I think we should all take away from all of this discussion is, I don't know if there's been a time in franchise history where the prospect pool has been as deep as it is.
Yeah.
Like
There hasn't been.
Yeah. And we're not talking about just like depth only. Like there are top end players that dot this system. And that's a credit to Judd Brackett identifying all this talent. But in the case of getting Zeev Buium, that's a credit to the Philadelphia Flyers saying, well, he's a little on the short side. We have a bunch of those defensemen already. We don't need another one.
We want a center.
Yeah, and then they kind of go off the board a little bit for the center that they took. But hey, that's why their front office executives make the big bucks, and we're just sitting here on our computers.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna rip on them until it turns out, like until we see either a bust or like some of the guys that they like. I mean, Zeev, they passed on, but some of the other centers that they passed on, like maybe surpassed the guy that they got. Yeah, but still, it did raise eyebrows. It did raise eyebrows for sure.
And it's, you know, that I'm glad you brought that point up, because it's one that I try to stress a bunch when we get to draft time. Is, you know, teams are basically drafting players with the hopes that everybody else is wrong about them and that they are the best fit for that particular team's style and system.
Oh yeah.
Not only is it about drafting talents, it's all about developing it the right way too.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Thank you so much for chiming in on that. We'll move up the rankings next week, and we'll get your opinion looking at well, as we move up 25 or 24, I guess, to 19, I guess we'll do in this case. So let's turn the page here, because there's literally nothing else to talk about in regards to the Minnesota Wild. We've exhausted Patrick Laine. We've exhausted Brock Faber, which again, shout out to Billy Guerin for signing Brock Faber, because that did give us something to talk about. And Patrick Laine hasn't moved yet, which, you know, it still gives us some time to maybe talk more about that story when he is moved, or if the Wild further inquire about him. But one thing that did come up, literally an article by Yahoo Sports, and then then the dominoes started to fall, was where Logan Couture from the San Jose Sharks, where he's at in his career. Now, this is going to make me feel a little bit old now. He's 35. He's 35, Seth. I remember when he was drafted, dude. I watched that draft with my friends, and like in my mind, Logan Couture is still like a younger player, but no, he's getting up there in his career. And last year, he only played 6 games for the San Jose Sharks. He had a season-ending lower body injury, which we found out literally like 3 weeks ago that it was a groin injury. So pretty bad injury there. Season-ending injury 6 games into the season. And Logan Couture has been, for lack of a better term, a Band-Aid throughout his entire career, as you can see here. But it sucked that in 2022, 2023, he was coming off a full season. He's only played 2 full seasons in the National Hockey League, and one of them was last year, where he still showed that he's got it. 27 goals, 40 assists for 67 points on, an abysmal San Jose Sharks team. But it really sucked to see that he only got 6 games this year before getting injured and having to, be shut down the rest of the season. So he said in his exit interview in April that he'd hope to get back on the ice for training in July. But according to Yahoo Sports, there's been no confirmation that he has been healthy enough to get back training on the ice. However, there's also been no confirmation that he's had any setbacks. So as fans, both San Jose Sharks fans and just fans of the sport, like we're in the dark here, Seth. We're in the dark here. Now, he has not indicated that he's going to retire anytime soon. So, like, if he can come back from this injury, then he's going to keep playing. Yeah. And he did say that, like, day-to-day life is back to normal. Like, he has no pain in his normal, like, day-to-day life anymore. In his normal workout routines, outside of, like, on-ice stuff and just, like, NHL training stuff, that he's good and that, like, quality of life is fine. But it's interesting that we're still left in the dark here. Now, for those who are thinking, okay, maybe it has something to do with the trade, that has been shut down. There were some like there were whispers of trade rumors towards the end of the season, but the San Jose Sharks brass have said, nope, that's not happening. And Logan Couture was really honest as well, quoted saying, I'm realistic. I'm not sure who's going to trade for a guy who's 35, makes $8 million a year, and played 6 games his last season. He does believe, though, in the Sharks rebuild, and he hopes to help the young core develop and perhaps even play in another playoff series again before his career is over. What are just your thoughts on this whole situation, Seth? The fact that like us fans, the hockey world, are still in the dark on this, and do you think Logan Couture will play a few more years in the National Hockey League?
You know, it's interesting because I think the fact that there just has been no update whatsoever speaks to a part of a player's career that everybody gets to, where the team just is not sure what they're going to be able to get from him at this point. But you hit it right on the head. Like, he is a guy that you want to have available to help a very young group of players and kind of show them the way, as somebody who has been a huge part of some really successful Sharks seasons in the past, like even all the way back to 2015. Look at some of those playoff runs that they went on that he was a part of.
Well, and in 2016, he got 20 points in 20 games played, 14 goals. Yeah.
Like, just integral parts of deep playoff runs. And, you know, the older you get, the harder it is to come back from injury. Wild fans are seeing something similar to that here with Jared Spurgeon.
Yep.
It gets to a point where you don't know. And so you kind of have this cautious optimism. Like, boy, it'd be really good if we could get Couture to help out with this group. But then on the other side of the coin, you're like, how many games are we going to get this year? And so I think there just is kind of this, well, let's just wait and see how things look in training camp. That'll be the big telling part, because, you know, he's going to want to, because of how last season went, he's going to want to get there early and get on the ice and get things going.
Yeah, but isn't it that time though right now? Like, we're past July, we're in August. So that's like my concern is, like, this ain't the 80s. Training camp is not time to get back in shape. Like, guys have to be ready to compete in training camp. Now I know he's locked in. Like, he's going to be on the Sharks roster if available, regardless. But still, you want the best Couture that you can get, all things considered, right? Yeah, and so it is weird. It strikes me as weird that we just have heard nothing. Like, it's quiet enough in the off season right now that you'd think if there was even a little bit of a rumbling of like, hey, Couture's back on the ice, he's skating, that Sharks outlets especially would just run with that. Because it's like there's nothing else going on. Like, any sort of a little bit of news you can get is enough to carve out a story on. And so the fact that there hasn't been anything at all, it's just weird. You might have to ask your friends at Locked On Sharks. We need some info. So report back next week and see if they've even heard anything. I will. I'll get the scoop. There you go. Well, obviously, wish him all the best in recovery. Great, like, Canadian center. Played on Olympic teams, played on World Junior teams, played on World Championship teams. So I've always been a fan of Logan Couture. And again, it's just so crazy to me, Seth, because, like, I was playing like fantasy sim leagues back in like my first year college, and I was like, oh, hey, Logan Couture, like, young guy, but shoot, man, time flies. And what a career he's had as well. Like, oh yeah, if this is the true, like, beginning of the end, because last year you could have fooled me. 34 years young, because we see guys playing, you know, into their late 30s now and still producing. Former and current Sharks guys in particular, I feel like San Jose just produces those kind of guys, right? And it just sucks that despite him being plagued throughout his career in injury as a young man, that last year we kind of saw like, oh, like, when healthy, he still got it. And he was the healthiest he'd been in a long time. Like, I think the healthiest he's been in like fucking 8 years or something like that. And then this year, for him to be just this last year anyways, for him just to be shut down so quickly. It sucked, especially for, Sharks fans who didn't really have much at all, or even any motivation to go to games other than to like see some of their favorite players play. Well, shoot, one of your favorite players and longtime fan favorites and franchise players is gone 6 games in. I mean, shoot, I'm sure that in addition to them just being an abysmal team and being a rebuild team, like I'm sure that affected ticket sales too.
Oh, for sure. Like when you are a young team, having those guys that are kind of franchise staples, that's how you get people in the seats. And so not having him be part of pretty much all of the season, that definitely had an impact.
Yeah. Again, wish him all the best and hope we hear some updates soon here. All right, folks, we just want to take this quick break to tell you about our friends at DraftKings. Know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan? There's only like 2 days out of the entire year without a game. 2! With so much happening and so much action that makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, place your first bet. It really couldn't be easier or any simpler. And if you're new to DraftKings, you gotta check this out. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. So what are you waiting for? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after insurance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. See terms and responsible gambling resources at dkng.co/base. Now back to the show. We got a couple other little things that we want to talk about here. This one was actually very interesting. Now, I'm not one to really report or talk about alumni games. I've gone to a few alumni games, and usually, the price of admission, the cost, it like the revenue, it all goes to usually a charity, which is awesome, which is why I go. But from like a hockey fan perspective, it's, the game ain't good. Let's just say that. However, this particular alumni game that just occurred, Seth, really, really cool. So various former and current NHL players, and like I said, NHL alumni, participated in a alumni/summer exhibition game, which I imagine the article I read didn't say that it was raising money towards anything, but you got to imagine that it was. This particular game took place 4,545 meters above sea level. That is right. This particular alumni/exhibition game took place in the top of the Jungfraujoch Mountains, which is a saddle of the Bernese Alps in Switzerland. And it took place, like I said, over like 4,500 meters above sea level. And notable NHL players such as Jonas Siegenthaler, Nino Niederreiter, and Nico Hischier, among others, all participated in this game alongside players from the club SC Bern, played in the highest accessible point in Europe. And they played some puck up there, Seth. How cool is that? Check out some of the visuals. Look at how beautiful this is.
Wow.
Look at how gorgeous this is. Just clear as day sky as well.
It's funny because you hear about this all the time when teams go to play in like Denver
Yeah.
How you got to make sure you're ready for the altitude, because the altitude is going to it's going to be a factor. It's going to be harder for you to catch your breath. Imagine being up that high, and thankfully it was an alumni game.
Yeah,
so
alumni and exhibition. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not going full bore, but some of the other things that were interesting was it took place on synthetic ice.
Yes.
Up at that, and they used what are called shark blades. Again, synthetic blades that are used off ice and made with ball bearings to provide sharpness and an on ice feel. But I would need an oxygen tank up there. Like if I was playing in this, I would need something to keep me from just passing out on the bench.
Dude,
then again,
it's wild.
I've never been a skater, so it's not something I need to worry about.
Well, and you can see the helicopters in the background of this clip are playing. And for those who are listening to the podcast, check this out on YouTube to see some of the visuals here as well. But just a really cool experience for some of these guys and their families. So again, we're helicoptered up there and just got to experience just the high elevation, but that just fresh air up there. And you mentioned the synthetic ice. So I've actually skated on synthetic ice before. Not this particular brand, nor these shark blades, these synthetic blades they use. I actually used real skates on the synthetic ice. And it's essentially it's kind of a hybrid of a hard plastic and glass.
Okay.
I think it's in the glass category, but it kind of resembles, and it's more durable, obviously, because you're skating on glass, you're going to break the fucking sheet.
Yeah.
But it's kind of got the hard plastic, durability, kind of like when you're playing, it on a more professional, ball hockey court sort of thing. So it was actually really cool. And it feels similar, except you have to give it a little bit more effort in your first initial strides. But once you're going, you glide, which is what's crazy about it. My brain still, when I was on it, didn't fathom, but you glide very similar to ice. You're just not going to glide as long, but
sure.
It's essentially, it's very similar. So it's actually a lot of youth hockey and things like that in Canada and even at the junior level, they're using it a lot for off-season training, because then once you get back on real ice, it's oh my God, it's almost easier. Now, for skating drills and stuff, it's more for cardio and for your initial stride. Because you don't want to get too used to it, because then when you get back on the ice, it might throw your timing off a little bit. But the throwback to the wild, actually, and we talked about this as well. Some of the only videos of Les Scovar on YouTube are a couple of his fights and him as a wee lad in his hometown, where his dad actually built a whole synthetic ice rink in, I don't know if it was a garage or their freaking outdoor barn or whatever. And he was one of the early kids to test out the one of the first wave of synthetic ice 10 years ago.
Because of still being relatively new to the game, I would have guessed that there was something kind of like artificial turf, the equivalent of that for hockey. But now learning about synthetic ice for the first time, that's my learn something new every day for today.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about right out of the college, before I went into the whole podcast network thing with THPN. My same business partner back then, Dylan Kaiser, we actually, our first entrepreneur idea before doing the whole podcast thing was getting a loan and investing in a whole synthetic ice facility, and then renting out chunks of it for birthday parties, again, junior players for training and things like that. We just looked at the cost of it at that time per square feet, and it was not only do we have to get a facility, and on Vancouver Island, we probably could have done it outdoor and just had a chain link fence or gate around it or whatever. But dude, it would have cost for a loan, it would have been minimum for the smallest facility, it would have been $500,000. And it's
oh my God.
No one was going to approve us for that coming out of college, loan debt up to our gills. And B, it's realistically, we needed 1.5 mil to start it. And it was just as much as, especially on Vancouver Island and Vancouver Island and Canada, where it's warm outside, so you could do it outside year round, as long as you have something to cover the rain and whatnot. And just there's like Minnesota. I mean, ice is. It's hard to get ice all the time. Like it probably would have done well. It was just like, we just didn't have the capital nor any credit to get a loan that. Or we didn't have some rich uncle who could have just been like, hey, yo, you want to make a quick buck here?
That also would have helped, but
yeah. Or aunt, uncle or aunt. But anyways, I just thought that was super cool. After I was like reading it, like sifting through hockey news, and I was like, I don't care about this. I don't care about this mock, whatever, this, that, whatever. And then I was like, oh, click the Instagram video. I was like, damn, this is cool. But you mentioned the elevation too. And this is actually a good segue because yes, going into Denver, it always blows my mind, especially in playoff series. When teams go into Denver and it's just like, man, like they truly have the home ice advantage because, again, I watch a lot of mixed martial arts. I watch a lot of combat sports. And anytime a UFC event or any MMA event is held in Colorado, the fighters have to get there sometimes 2 months earlier.
Yep.
Or they gas out after the first round, right?
You got to get acclimated.
It blows my mind that hockey players are in like just that good a shape where it's just like, you know what, like, we get in the day before and yeah, we may not be fully acclimated, but like we're good enough to go and play the Colorado Avalanche. But now there's another team set this year. The Arizona Coyotes, they have moved to Utah, the Utah Hockey Club. They're at elevation too, man.
Yeah, that'll be another interesting wrinkle to that because, I hadn't thought about that until you brought it up. And you're right. Like NHL teams just waltz into the Colorado Avalanche arena, do the game, and then they go home like nothing's going on. Whereas every time there's like an NFL game being played, you always hear about it. They're like, oh, gotta get ready for the elevation, like this, that, and the other.
Dude, Utah's higher elevation than Denver too. Utah is 6,100 feet and Denver's 5,200.
Jeez. Well,
I mean, was it Utah? Yeah, Salt Lake. Never. Salt Lake is 45-ish. Cedar City is 5,800 and Park City 7,000. Dude, that's crazy, man. Like I've done a lot of hiking and like I've hiked a pretty high elevation before and like it's a motherfucker, dude. Like it is no joke, right?
Well, and you hear about like players that have heart issues having to like there was an NFL player that they talked about this every time the teams would play. You'd have to like drive because the elevation just like it affects you tremendously. Yeah. Which you're in more constant motion as an NHL player. So I don't know why that wouldn't be more of an issue.
It's something I kind of want to look into a little bit more because I kind of didn't even really put much stock into it until I started really covering combat sports and I saw fighters gas after one round or boxers as well, right? Who I'm like, dude, like, yeah, no wonder you come here 2 months early if you're going to go 12 rounds in a title fight, somewhere in Colorado, right? Like that's crazy. So it actually like it's fascinating and it blows my mind of how tremendous these athletes are. Dude, can you imagine like back in the day when people were still like smoking and shit like that in the locker room? You come into Colorado. Like, are you kidding me? Like, how did you even like? No wonder Patrick Waugh won so many cups.
I've seen there was a Vikings player that I don't think it was a few years ago that scored like a touchdown, and they're sitting on the sidelines with an oxygen mask.
Yeah,
it's like it's a factor, but it'll be a factor for what will be soon called the Utah Yeti.
God, I hope so.
We talked about it when the name choices were first dropped. Like that's the one that makes the most sense from a corporate level,
level and like their mascot. It's already written. Yeah. The logo. I mean, like I think I showed you the Winnipeg Ice, the former Winnipeg Ice, who are now the Wenatchee Wild, but how they had like that snow monster, that pretty much that Yeti. And something similar to that, a little less cartoony, but that could work for sure.
Like you can just approach Yeti brand as the like chief sponsor.
Easy. That's going to be on the jersey for sure, or on the helmet.
Team, the arena, like just get him for like $3 billion and just let him do everything.
Oh, for sure. Why we bring up Utah as well, and like this was a perfect segue when we're talking about elevation, was they actually revealed their inaugural season logo, Seth. So I'll bring that up on screen as well here. Which honestly, I like. I like this. I like the mountain crest here. Now there needs to be like, we need to see like, you know, Utah Yeti here with like the Yeti, what is going to be eventually the Yeti logo. Again, knock on wood, that we hope and project like right here instead of hockey Utah Club or Utah Hockey Club. But so I do like this crest, either for a shoulder pad or if they just go with that as their center crest here. But this will be on the ice for their inaugural season. I mean, all things considered, given that they're fucking named Utah Hockey Club, they literally have a soccer name. What are your thoughts on this? Because I think it's clean as hell.
When the color scheme initially came out and they did like the Utah Hockey Club thing, I was kind of on it
because it was just this, right? It was just the circle, just the Utah just black.
Wasn't enough going on with it, and now I see this. I'm with you. I like it because it's more full. Like there's more going on. And I like that they incorporated the mountains up top.
I love that.
That's a nice, and that's just a subtle, a subtle detail, but it makes all the difference. Like if you just cap that crest, like just straight across above inaugural, the fact that they turn that into mountains is, whoever put that together deserves a raise.
Yep. For sure. And again, it's something, it's this tiny little simple detail that makes a world of difference. So that's actually, it's going to look really cool on the ice. And I'm interested to see, like, again, I want to see how the jerseys actually look, whether this is like the shoulder patch or this is like actually the main crest. It's a lot better than just the circle, Utah, black, bold, and hockey above it and club underneath it.
Yeah. I like that for an inaugural season, for your first go around, to just get the thing going before you actually come up with the logo and all the fun things that go around with it. That's a good spot to start.
Yeah. So here were some of the other comparable NHL inaugural seasons. Now they all had names. But to be honest, out of all of them here, and I'm sorry, Minnesota Wild fans, Seattle's and Utah's I like the best, to be honest.
Seattle's is my favorite without a doubt. That is just the
mountain
flows.
And the sea.
Yeah, it flows so nicely. They've done such a good job with all of the branding of everything that they've done. Like the Winter Classic was a 2,000 out of 10. How they had like actual like dock going from from the locker rooms out onto the ice. That was amazing. And the color scheme, the lettering, all of it, like they've knocked it out of the park, and it looks like Utah is hoping to do the same. But I've got to pour one out for the Atlanta Thrashers.
Yeah. It was a horrendous inaugural season logo too, though. On ice logo. Yeah. It's so bad. Okay, well, what's the worst one here in your mind? For me, I think Nashville's the worst.
Yeah.
I love their logo, but it sucks.
It's too vanilla, it's too busy. Yeah. The color scheme is just grating. For one thing, like, yeah,
it's like some weird, like, what the fuck kind of blue? It's gray, I guess. It's like blue, gray, then dark blue in center, the yellow, but then there's no yellow on the actual like saber tooth. Yeah, they just fucking sucked.
Do not give that guy a raise. And I don't know, the Vegas one is fine. It doesn't.
Yeah, that one's fine. I don't hate it. I don't love it.
Yeah, it doesn't jump out at me really at all. It's just kind of there.
I like Winnipeg's. It's kind of the same with Vegas. Like it's fine. It's fine. I would have liked it maybe a little bit bigger. I don't know why they did the kind of this circle patch. Like if they would have made it a little bit bigger. I don't know. Blue Jackets is whatever. Thrashers suck. And honestly, like the Wilds is whatever. At least the Wild has some symmetry to it, and they used all the colors properly. Yeah. Unlike Nashville.
Yeah, the Nashville one is by far the worst.
Yeah. I would say Nashville, then Thrashers, if we're going worst to best. Blue Jackets, Wild, Vegas, Winnipeg, Utah, Seattle.
Yep. I'm in unison on that.
Yeah, well, it's so weird that we're going to have a hockey team in Utah. And it's going to be weird that we like just can't rip on the Coyotes anymore. Like, well, who's going to be the punching bag of the league now? Columbus?
Well, Columbus, or for the fact that they just did like nothing this offseason, it's starting to look like Anaheim.
Yeah, but like they have a Stanley Cup.
True.
They have, you know what I mean? Like it's and I don't know. Like I get where you're coming from, but like I don't think they're even close, and I don't think any team will be close to Arizona level punching bag because like they were unique throughout their entire tenure in the National Hockey League. But I mean, like Columbus is pushing it because like before Arizona, it was Atlanta.
Yeah,
talk about night and day going to Winnipeg.
We used to like everybody used to make jokes about them just taking on bad contracts because they didn't want to be like a serious franchise.
I know.
Just give us all your bad contracts, we'll take them. And yeah, it looks like they might be kind of getting on the right track. So I don't think we can do those as much anymore.
Hoppy said he saw, I forget what game he was at. I don't know where he was either. If he was it was at a game in Minnesota, if he was somewhere else watching a game. But he said he saw, and he loved it. He didn't snap a picture, but he said he saw someone have a Datsuk Arizona Coyotes jersey. Datsuk never played a single game for the Arizona Coyotes, but they traded for him.
That is somebody that is in on the bet. Like yes, that is a person that knows what's going on with their team.
Well, and Hoppy, who has a Koivu Columbus Blue Jackets jersey, I mean, you could like that really just tickled his fancy.
Oh yeah, like the most notable, like that would be like a Wild fan getting a Ryan O'Reilly jersey.
Yes, exactly. Now I know he played, 2 seasons for Canucks, but there was someone in I don't even know who he was, but when I was in college, I saw someone have a number 17 Canucks jersey that wasn't Ryan Kessler, but it was Radim Verbata. Who he had one good year with the Canucks. He signed a 2-year deal with the Canucks. First year, put up 30 goals, 60 points. Second year, dude, he went from playing with the Sedins one year to then Willie Desjardins putting him on like the third and fourth line. And yeah, no shit, he was pissed off and like didn't put up any good numbers. It was like, bro, you went from like giving the Sedins a sniper to then taking him off that line and everyone. Then that was a weird call. But I even though he did play 2 years with the Canucks, I respected that because usually when you saw a 17 Canucks jersey, it was Ryan Kessler. But to see Radim Verbata, I was like, oh, that's sick. That's good. That's
fans that are in on the bit and they get it. Like we need more of those.
Absolutely. Seth, did you hear the results of the U18, the Hlinka Gretzky?
No.
Oh, Canada, baby. Oh, Canada defeating the Czech Republic. Mind you, in a very close game. A 2-1 game, Canada beats the Czech Republic to get yet another U18 championship at the Hlinka Gretzky. I will say, though, like you just heard the score, was not a dominant win by any mean, dude. The Czechs, they got some fucking young players brewing. And a lot of these young guys actually are set to play in the CHL, whether it's the OHL, WHL, or QMJHL. In these upcoming seasons, which is cool to see, and probably part of the reason why a lot of them are doing well. Now, I'm not poo-pooing on how the Czechs develop their guys in their, U16, U17, U18 programs out there in the Czech Republic. But what I'm saying is the ones who are too good for those clubs, too good for those systems, too good for those tournaments, coming over and playing, Canadian talent, that is going to further those guys who have that step above the rest in their home country. That's going to give them a better development path and or weed out those who, okay, no, you do belong over there. So I was reading about it and I watched a good chunk of the game. The full game is on YouTube, by the way, if you guys want to check out extended highlights, full games of the tournament. They were tracked on YouTube. Both goaltenders played outstanding, though, Seth. 24 saves for the Czech goaltender, 18 for Canada. So, like, it wasn't just a close score, a tight scoring game, and Canada just, like, peppered the opposing goaltender, and he played out of his mind. Now, he did play out of his mind. 24 saves, but the Czechs were pushing it on Canada as well, and they almost opened up the scoring about like 4 or 5 minutes into, and Canada's goaltender made an incredible save. So just wanted to give the Czechs a big shout out. They looked awesome in this tournament. Sweden looked good in this tournament. The States looked comme ci, comme ça, as we say there in Canada. Yeah. But and the Canadians, yeah, they won it. Congratulations to my Canadian brothers, but it left a little bit to be desired with, how good the Czechs played them.
Yeah, it's interesting because anytime these tournaments are going on, whether it be the Olympics, which we'll be having coming up here, any
2
of
years,
the
baby, 2 years,
it's finally back. The World Championships, any of those tournaments where the U.S. and or Canada are involved, you just feel like they should win it every year. And if they don't, it's kind of a disappointment. But again, we have the NHL. No other country has that. And so the priorities for USA and to a lesser extent Canada is winning the Stanley Cup. And all these other nations, like, this is a big deal for them. Like, these are the tournaments that they want to win. Not saying the US and Canada don't, but these are the ones that they really like go for. And so you get the best that they have. And quite often it ends up being enough.
So a projected first overall pick, not in this next draft, but the year after, in a Canadian kid named Gavin McKenna. He plays for the Medicine Hat Tigers. Seth, he's 16 years old. Guess how many points he put up in the WHL last year?
76.
97. 34 goals, 97 points. These are Riley Height fucking numbers, by the way, guys. In 61 games played, he's 16. He played 16 games as a 15-year-old, put up 18 points last year.
Oh my God.
Dude, he is fucking sick. He's so sick. And 20 points in 7 games in this last year in full U18 competition.
Save some for the rest. Those are video game numbers.
Dude,
save some for the rest of them.
He's so sick. Like, he's like, again, barring a complete drop off, which, dude, you're 16 years old putting up 97 points in the dub. Like, holy fuck. Like, he's going to be like, I hate throwing around the term generational player like Oprah fucking hands out cars, but like, still, this kid, like, these are Bedard numbers.
Yeah. Well, looks like it may be time for me to get some draft prep going already.
Yeah, again, for 2 years down the road, dude, because he's not even eligible to be drafted next year. Like, dude, he could put up like 100+ points as a 17-year-old, and honestly, like, that might. Like, the dub might not even be challenging enough for him. He might have to like go overseas, kind of like Austin Matthews did, and play for a pro team just to get better competition. Or like Elias Pettersson did, going up from Allsvenskan to the SHL in his draft year.
Jeez.
Like, he's that good, dude. He's that good. Where it's like, Bedard didn't even pop this, like, McDavid and Bedard didn't pop this early.
No. Like, It's rare, if ever, that you see somebody hit the ground running that quickly. Like, usually you do well if you are that talented, but for somebody to just take over at that age, it's unbelievable.
I'm looking to see how good the team was as well. Oh, and his coach, former Vancouver Canucks coach Willie Desjardins, longtime Medicine Hat coach. Okay, his team was fucking sick, but still, like, the guy right behind him in scoring 91 points, who was a 19-year-old, and then 2 17-year-olds, 85 and 62. But he still led the team as 15 and 16-year-old throughout the season. And he started the year as a 15-year-old.
Jeez.
That's crazy. So he must have been granted exceptional status, and I just didn't even notice. That's crazy, dude. That's insane. Like in the O and Q, you know, I wouldn't read into it as much, but in the dub, man, that's insane. Wow. Keep your eye out for him. And he got 6 points in 5 games in this tournament, by the way. But 20 in 7 games overall in U18 tournament this year.
I'm gonna go try to do that on a video game because there's no way I could ever do that in real life.
That's so wild. That's so wild, dude. I've watched a bit of him, like just like there's highlights that come up on my like Twitter feed and things like that. But like I'm definitely going to be doing a more of a deep dive because like, dude, that's like fucking 3-point games left, right, and center. Like, are you kidding me? I wonder I'm wondering what his highest point game was. Like, I wouldn't be even surprised if he had put up like an 8 to 9 point game.
Well, that's the thing is like your floor ends up being like a 3-point game.
That's so crazy, man.
Nuts.
That's so crazy. Speaking of nuts, we have a nuts highlight to share with you guys before we wrap things up here. And early contention for Hoppy and Z's on Judd'z Budz on their all-name team coming up here. I used to do a segment on radio, Seth, called The Names of the Game, and it surpassed hockey. It was like all sports. We'd find, you know, a funny name in sports. We'd profile that player, whether they played 3 NHL games, you know, maybe 2-year college and then hung up the skates, or who were like, you know, a famous NFL player, right? Or baseball player. Like, so names just brings me back to my radio days doing sports radio. And we call that segment The Name of the Game. Hoppy and Z, you know, they're doing their all-name team as well. This was actually shared in our hockey group chat, so you'll be familiar with this one. But a young player who's only 16 years of age and who is 2026 draft eligible out of Russia, named Andrei Shitov. Yes, that is right.
Is it Shitov or Shitov?
It's Shitov.
Okay.
That's how I'm pronouncing it. It's probably Shitov, but we're dumb Americans, so it's Shitov.
You have my permission to proceed with Shitov.
He's playing his first year in the MHL, which is the junior league in Russia. He's only played in, what was it, like U16, U17, U18 prior to then. And he's put up damn good numbers. 53 points in 24 games in the U17 team in Russia. He's now playing for a legit junior team, and they're in preseason right now, Seth. Preseason, and he's putting up highlights like this. Check it out. Boom! Ooh. Little lacrosse style goal there, baby. Again, for those who are listening to the podcast, check us out on YouTube. This guy did the Michigan, and he's 16 years old.
If you're the goalie there, because he had kind of an inkling that it was coming.
Yeah.
He just couldn't get up.
Oh shit.
He just couldn't get himself in position quick enough. If I'm the goalie there, I take my mask, my gloves, and my stick, and I lay them down in the crease, and I skate off the ice.
Well, I was going to... So, similar to you, I would take my helmet off, take my gloves off, put the stick down, and then beat the shit out of him, personally. But... Fuck you, little shit. This is preseason.
Like, my mentality as a goalie would be, all right,
I'm done.
I am not going to be able to come back from that one, and so I tap out.
Imagine if the goalie was like 18 or like almost aged out too, and like this little 16-year-old punk comes in. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
You say to your coach, you can play with an empty net for the rest of the game, or bring in the other guy because I am out. Yeah.
Well, and in fairness to the goalie, like that's I mean, we see goals scored like that, even, you know, at the high like junior A, major junior level, college, obviously, and even in the NHL. So like no shame, but still like a little bit of shame, especially because he's 16.
A little bit.
Beautiful stuff.
Little bit of shame.
Shout out to Shitov. I hope he becomes a shit talker. He could be shit Shitov. Oh, we're gonna have fun with this one.
Shit talked by Shitov.
Again, projected to be a first rounder in the 2026 draft. So there you go. Gavin McKenna and fucking Andrei.
We are setting the stage. We're setting the stage for the ultimate draft buildup. A 2-year deep dive.
Dude, that's gonna be a fun year. Olympic year and a loaded draft. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. We just have to get through this this year.
One more.
Yeah. While Suter and Parise contracts off the book too. Like, I mean, man, 25, 26. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
One more year.
One more year. Well, Seth, that about does it here. Look at that. Managed to squeeze a whole hour of hockey talk in with no wild news at all. That's how you know. That's how you know we fucking love this sport, ladies and gentlemen. But what do you got coming up this week on Locked On Wild? I know we didn't have anything cooking last week because we literally there was nothing to cook. There was nothing to cook. The kitchen was bare.
Well, it rarely happens. It's happened a couple of times, but I got like the equivalent of writer's block, basically, like as a podcast host, and
which I totally understood.
Like I'm pretty good at coming up with quick ideas and being able to spin them into an episode, and I had nothing last week, and so it just was a good time to take a little bit of a breather. And now, this week I'm going to take a look back at the last few Stanley Cup champions to see what the Minnesota Wilds can learn from those particular teams. And I'm going to try to focus on a key area with each of them.
I already have notes. And one of them is should have kept Kulikov, motherfucker.
That certainly helps. Now, if he wouldn't have been Olayed in front of the net in that St. Louis series for like 6 goals, like he was turnstile status.
Oh yeah.
Right in front of the net. And it's like, dude, you have to, like, you can't just spin and look. Like you gotta find somebody and knock him down or get in the way of the puck. And he just stood there.
Yeah.
So that'll
be fun.
Focus.
That'll be fun
this week.
I'm definitely going to try to find every Wild player who's been on Stanley Cup teams to be like, okay, well, let's start here. All right. Vegas, Alex Tuck.
Because there are plenty of former Wild players that have. It's just no current ones have.
Yeah. This will be fun. I'm excited for this.
Yeah. It'll be a fun exercise this week. And we're going to be taking a much bigger deep dive into the season as we get closer. We're still about a month out from even that.
Yeah. So. Like, enjoy the summer, guys. Enjoy the summer. This is truly like the month of where we're still going to create content for you guys, but it's going to be, fun episodes like this. Like I said, we grasp at straws for Wild news, but thank God we can lean on Hoppy and Z's prospect rankings to get us through this, which is good. Thank you, boys. Thank you. But like, the Hlinka Gretzky's done. Like the World Junior Summer Showcase is done. Like this is from like August, 11th to like September 15th.
Yeah.
That's like, there's nothing going on. There's nothing going on. There might be some trades. There might be some signings, and we will 100% dissect that for you guys. But other than, games being played at 4,500 elevation and shit like that, there's not really much more to divulge in.
But we do anyway.
Hey, and if you ever want to rank hockey fights, Seth, you know who to call. Just saying. Top 10 Bugard scraps. I'm in.
Oh, boy.
I'm the fight guy. I'm surprised you haven't brought this to my attention before.
I jot that down. Jot that down.
There you go. We got 2 weeks worth of content already in this brainstorming session at the end of this podcast. All right, Seth, as always, it's a pleasure. And we'll see all you guys Locked On Wild on Friday when I appear on that show. And we'll be back on the Sota Pod next week. Thanks, Seth. Big shout out to Seth as always, guys, and reminder that I am featured on his podcast, Locked On Wild, every Friday. So be sure to tune in for that. And breaking news at the time of this recording, at the time of wrapping up this podcast, Tuesday morning, news just broken. Oh, this just warms my soul as a Canadian, and I guess now Canadian-American hockey fan who cannot stand the Edmonton Oilers. Now, you guys are probably saying, well, do you just hate every single Canadian team? Almost. I mean, fuck the Maple Leafs. Screw the Montreal Canadiens. And honestly, it's been more enjoyable to hate the Oilers more and more these days. Realistically, the Senators, Winnipeg, Calgary, and the Canucks are really the only Canadian teams that I actually like. The Canucks being the one that I love. But anyways, I digress. I love what the St. Louis Blues did here this morning. And yes, a Minnesota Wild-based podcast is loving something the St. Louis Blues did, because Doug Armstrong today has announced that the Blues have tendered offer sheets to the Edmonton Oilers defenseman Philip Broberg and forward Dylan Holloway. The Oilers have 7 days to exercise the right of first refusal on each of the players. And the Blues and Doug Armstrong have said, we have no further comment until the Oilers make their decision. Based Doug Armstrong, ladies and gentlemen. Broberg, he's 23 years of age. He played 81 games for the Edmonton Oilers over 3 seasons, 2 goals, 11 assists, and he was selected 8th overall in the 2019 draft. He's also played 20 playoff games for the Edmonton Oilers, including 10 games during their last run to the Stanley Cup Finals, where he posted 3 points. 2 goals, 1 assist. The offer to Broberg is a 2-year contract at $4.5 million per year. The maximum offer that would require a second-round draft pick as compensation. I love what the St. Louis Blues are doing, man. Fuck the Oilers. Holloway, 22 years of age, has suited up for 89 games with the Edmonton Oilers since entering the league in 2022-2023, and he was also a former first-round pick at 14th overall in the 2020 draft. He tallied 9 goals, 9 assists during the 2 seasons. He's actually a Calgary, Alberta native who played out of the University of Wisconsin in the NCAA before joining the National Hockey League. He's played 26 career playoff games, including 25 this last playoff run for the Edmonton Oilers in 2024. He contributed 5 goals and 2 assists. The offer to Holloway is a 2-year contract at $2.29 million per year. The maximum offer that would require a 3rd-round pick as compensation. This is amazing. I'm so happy this news just broke, because this further cap straps the Edmonton Oilers if they choose to match these offers. And if not, the Blues just got some free draft picks from the Edmonton Oilers, ladies and gentlemen. This is unbelievable. Anyway, sorry, I had to bring that up. That is awesome. Oh, just watching the Edmonton Oilers further cry. I don't know if you guys saw the behind the scenes clips from the documentary or whatnot of all the Edmonton Oilers crying as the Florida Panthers are being announced the Stanley Cup winners. It was a beautiful thing. Chef's kiss. Anyways, before we get to the Hoppy Hour here, I just wanted to talk about that and also give a shout out to our friends at 7th Avenue Pizza. 7th Avenue Pizza, ladies and gentlemen, the best damn frozen pizza. Hell, the best pizza on the planet. I don't need any frozen pizza. I don't need any pizza from a restaurant. I don't even need to go to Italy anymore, because the best pizza is here in Minnesota. The best pizza is 7th Avenue Pizza. The breakfast pizza is damn good as well, man. Oh my goodness. It is amazing. And you can find it pretty much everywhere these days. Hy-Vee just wrapped up their sale, but I know throughout the end of August and the start of September, Jerry Foods is going to knock that price down again, and they usually do sales for $7.99. You can find them at Lunds and Byerly. Shoot, you can find them pretty much everywhere now, ladies and gentlemen. The sale at Hy-Vee just wrapped up. They had $2 off of every frozen pizza, but they sold out of 7th Ave, which is amazing for our friends at 7th Avenue Pizza, but the freezers are restocked, so if there's a Hy-Vee near you, you can find them there. And if you cannot find them at your local grocery store, ask them why, or hit up 7th Avenue Pizza on social media at 7th Ave Pizza and ask them where is the closest location you can find them. They're also participating in various events this summer, so if you want to meet the crew, Matt and the amazing people there at 7th Ave Pizza, again, follow them on social media, find out what events they'll be working at as well. Great people, the best product on the planet in regards to pizza, and we absolutely love working with them. 7th Ave Pizza, a proud partner of the Sota Pod. Before we wrap up the show, guys, and thank you all again for your patience, I just want to give a big shout out to our friends at Better Edge. That is right, Better Edge. More of a social media platform than it is even a betting platform, but it is amazing, ladies and gentlemen. It is a free platform with legal betting in the state of Minnesota and 44 other states as well. And if you want a deal today, if you want to take advantage of our relationship with betteredge.com, go to betteredge.com/Sota Pod and claim your $20 signing bonus today. It's free money to play around with, ladies and gentlemen. Challenge your friends, prove other users on the platform wrong, and have fun using this amazing platform. It's a local company as well, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're from Minnesota, you might as well help them out. You might as well help drive traffic to their app by inviting your friends and telling them about this awesome and special offer we have for you guys by going to betteredge.com/Sota Pod and claiming that $20 to play around with. We're going to be hosting a ton of contests throughout this season as well. Minnesota Wild Game Day Pick'ems, brackets for the NCAA Championship and High School Hockey Championship, High School Hockey Tournament, as well as some Viking stuff as well. Stay tuned for that. And if you are already a fan of the platform, if you've already doubled or tripled or quadrupled that $20 signing bonus upon going to betteredge.com/Sota Pod, and you want more from the app, more from the platform, you can go to betteredge.com/premium and become a premium player. Premium players have access to free entry to premium pick'em contests, order grades, advanced order filterings, API access, and more. Like I said, more details at betteredge.com/premium. But if you have not used the app yet, go to betteredge.com/Sota Pod, sign up, and claim your $20 today. BetterEdge.com, a proud partner and another local partner here of the Sota Pod. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Jam-packed show, fun hoppy hour, and thank you guys for your patience. Reminder that Judd'z Budz is moving to Thursday for the remainder of the summer and preseason. So if you want to catch the live show, it will be Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And the next few episodes of Judd'z Budz on the podcast side and on YouTube are going to be running down and ranking every single prospect in the Minnesota Wild system. It's a great show that we've done in collaboration with Sound the Foghorn for the last 3 years now. We're keeping the tradition going despite the boys at Sound the Foghorn, dispersing and doing their own thing. We're still going to bring the old band back together for these fun and insightful Minnesota Wild prospect rankings. But that does it here today, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button on the video and subscribe to the channel. We have daily uploads for your viewing pleasure, plus live streams from Judd'z Budz and a ton of watch parties for Minnesota Wild games that are going to be coming this season. So stay tuned for that. If you're listening on the audio side, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever app you listen to, thank you for being an OG. I know a lot of you listen to the audio side of things and aren't big on YouTube. That's okay. I appreciate you guys. If you don't mind, give us a kind review, give us 5 stars, rack up that ranking, as it does help us get in front of more listeners, just like liking the video and commenting on the videos on YouTube help us get in front of more eyes. But that is it. Signing off, I'm Isha Dromi alongside Seth Toupal. This has been the Sota Pod, presented by our friends at Better Edge, 7th Avenue Pizza, Northland Vodka, and Waggle Golf. Don't fear, just drink some beer and stay wild.